The movement is more about staking claims and taking control, and it should be avoided, and it should be exposed whenever Bible-believing followers of Jesus Christ encounter it. It's very seductive. I understand it. I was in it, man. I was there. I get it. I'm not here to criticize anybody who's fallen into the movement and falls for the teaching. Right? You'll hear the term abundance, abundance of life, or manifesting abundance in your life. First of all, please understand that everyone can't experience abundance. We're not all living under the same circumstances. The promise of abundance is one that can only be made to those who happen to live in a place where they're free to seek it. Now, of course, the spiritual teacher of today will answer this by asserting that it's not material abundance they're seeking or teaching. Rather, they'll say the spiritual abundance they're talking about is peace, love, joy, and unity. So, tell that to the millions of people today, right now and today, living under totalitarian dictators, oppressed to death under totalitarian dictators, starving to death under dictators like Kim Jong-un in North Korea, or just name any totalitarian Islamic state in Africa or the Middle East. Tell that to those people, that they can have abundant life. The message of ascension and abundance is not true. We've heard this today, right? The mechanics of ascension, that's what the Lazarus Initiative is about. The mechanics of cosmogenesis, the mechanics of ascension, right? This message of ascension is not true. It's flat out a lie because it cannot be applied universally to all people. It's fundamentally flawed in its first claim that we're all one. This movement, this idea of ascension, it's only popular among affluent people because most of us don't know real struggle. Okay, the New Age movement will tell you that. Well, it's because karma is at work. You see, karma is at work in the lives of those people who are suffering. They did something in a previous life to end them up here suffering in this one. That's why we want to focus on ascending right now so that we don't suffer in the next life. Well, listen, would you say the same thing about karma to someone who wants to sign up for your seminar? Someone who comes to you and says, I'm suffering, help me. Are you going to tell them it was, you have to keep suffering because this is your payment for what you did in your previous life? Likewise, okay, if karma was true, why don't people very easily remember their evil deeds from their previous life? If people are suffering for something they did in their previous life, why don't they know what they're suffering for? It's kind of a ridiculous doctrine if you don't know why you're being punished. The movement is morally and truthfully bankrupt. Please understand this, that one of the greatest gifts that God can give you is suffering. In many cases, probably in most cases, it is through suffering that most people come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Where do you see Christianity growing the fastest today? Look at nations in Africa and look at China. That's where Christianity is growing the fastest right now. Where is Christianity decreasing the fastest? The West, United States of America, for one. Always ask this question. What is the worldview the person is working from? Always ask that question. And then consider what are the implications of a flawed worldview. The establishment is very happy for you to wake up. As long as you wake up to Sasha Stone or wake up to David Icke, that's okay. But don't wake up to Jesus Christ. Don't wake up to absolute truth. We can't have that. If you want to know what movement is true in the world, look at the one that's persecuted more than any. And it's not reported. Christians are the most persecuted single group in the world. This form of New Age, it's Gnosticism. This is Gnostic cultism. All right, it's so they're claiming that they're against the New World techno cult. Meanwhile, they're just trading one cult for another cult. This would be a Gnostic cult. So Gnosticism is a theological error that was prevalent around the time of Christ. Generally speaking, Gnosticism taught that salvation, you heard him mention salvation and how it's achieved by ascension. Generally speaking, Gnosticism taught that salvation is achieved through special knowledge, usually dealt with the individual's relationship to the transcendent being or a nondescript God. It denies the incarnation of God as the Son. In doing so, it denies the true efficacy of the atonement. Since if Jesus is not God, he could not atone for all of mankind, and we are still lost in our sins. Gnosticism is a philosophical worldview that stresses special knowledge. And it's about the mechanics of ascension. We're going to teach you how to be saved. We're going to teach you how to achieve your salvation. Gnostics maintain, even today, that they have special knowledge about God, which enables them to understand the human condition as it relates to the world. This helps the Gnostic, the New Ager, to deny the world by asserting that the good human spirit need not be restricted by the evil material world. Early Gnostics taught that God was so perfect that he could not have anything to do with the physical world, including its creation. Therefore, God made a demiurge, a lesser God, through which the world was created. Gnostics considered themselves superior to early Christians and believed that this lesser God, the demiurge, was the God of the Old Testament. Gnostics believed that spiritual knowledge is the key to attain salvation, that the soul needed to experience many lifetimes before attaining salvation, thus suggesting a belief in reincarnation and karma. Isn't it interesting how the first, or one of the first Christian heresies is the most common manifestation or iteration of the New Age movement today? Now, duality in the concept of God, Gnostics believe that there is a true God who is the essence of every living and non-living creation, and a false God or creator God who created the flawed world. So you can see the pantheism. Gnostics believe that there is a true God who is the essence of every living and non-living creation. We are all one. According to the Gnostics, humans mirrored the duality found in the world. They are in part flawed from the creation of the false creator, and yet also contain the light of the true God. It is a one-for-one match, folks. The original, one of the first Christian heresies, Gnosticism, and this movement that you heard Sasha Stone describe very plainly, you are light. God is in you. In fact, you are God. What is the problem with saying we're all one? That we're all connected. We're all conscious, so isn't it reasonable to say that we're all connected, that we all share consciousness, so we're all one, and hey, the creation is all one? Let's refute once and for all the New Age movement, all right? The idea that we're all one, that everything is one. Let's imagine, let's visualize that we're on a pathway walking toward the city of God. And people on the pathway walking the other direction are headed toward the abyss or hell. And we want to try to persuade the people that we pass. And we're going to pass a woman named Miriam. And she's a pantheist. In this sense, we'll consider she's a follower of Sasha Stone. She is a New Ager. She really is sincere. She's sincere, and she believes that we're all that we're all one, that everything is one. It makes sense to her. And we see a man named Evangelist, deep in conversation with someone else. She was a young woman, and she looked very earnest. She was somewhat attractive. She was holding something in the palm of her hand and holding it out for Evangelist to see. It was clear she was a true believer in something. And what is that? He asked. A crystal. And does it have spiritual significance? It certainly does. Of course, everything has spiritual significance, but some things, like this, have extraordinary power. Evangelist nodded, but his interest was not in the crystal. Well, Miriam, you say that everything has spiritual significance. Why is that? Because everything is one. The universe is God, and God is the universe. So you're a pantheist. You Christians are so obsessed with labels, but if it helps you understand, yeah, I'm a pantheist. So you believe that everything is as important as everything else. There's no division. That's correct. There's no such thing as insignificance. Everything, everyone is part of the one. Some deny this and others believe it, but the enlightened, like me, are those who see it. So that is why you single out some objects, like crystals, for special attention. They help you on the path toward this enlightenment. When you say that everything is part of the one, do you mean everything? Yes, I do. There are no exceptions. You seem to have trouble with that. There is a problem with that in the area of morality. The belief that everything is one is not consistent with a belief in morality, or that there's such thing as good and evil. Miriam was indignant. She said, "How can you say that?" So the apparent diversity that we see around us is just Maya. It's just the illusion. Is that right? Yes, and that's true too. So if everything is one, then all the various manifestations of plurality should be rejected as just illusions. This and that, mine and yours, here and there are no distinctions. What's good is evil, what's evil is good. True, but what does that have to do with morality? When a man pours a cup of coffee, is he acting as part of this one? When a man rapes and murders a woman, is he acting as part of the one? So Miriam stopped. She didn't want to answer this question. Evangelist repeated the question. Do you believe that this too is part of the one? And that one mark of the enlightened individual would be the ability to see this not as an evil action, but as an equal part of the ultimate one. So if acknowledgement of the one leads to the abolition of all distinctions, it must also include the abolition of the distinction between good and evil. It's not just the distinction that is abolished. Both good and evil themselves are abolished. That is, the enlightened person comes to understand that they are both part of the one. So, on this side of enlightenment, what difference does it make how we believe? It's all the same. A person who rapes and murders does so because he's caught up in the illusion. If he refrained, he could pursue enlightenment. But that raises two more questions. Why could he not pursue enlightenment through rape and murder? The second question is this. Suppose he doesn't choose to pursue enlightenment. Isn't this lack of pursuit also part of the one? Why be enlightened? Words like ought and ought not are just part of the illusion. But to get away from the illusion, people say things like, we ought to be enlightened, indicating that they are still caught in the trap. The only consistent way out of the trap is to recognize that nothing matters. It doesn't matter if the man chooses to find enlightenment through rape and murder. Miriam said, I think you must be playing little word games. I don't mean to upset you. Then why all the questions? Because you obviously believe that everything is one and that others should join you in this belief. But before others join you, I'm suggesting that they should ask a few questions. Miriam said, but the questions you ask show that you're just trapped by Western rationalism, by the patriarchy. You're just playing with logic. It's true, I am using logic, but your answers show that you are trapped in this same Western rationalism. The only difference is that you're uncomfortable with it and use it inconsistently. If a man says this, not that, he is accused of putting everything into rational category. All men make distinctions because they must. When someone denies distinctions, he is making a distinction. There is no escape from the way God made the world. Miriam looked at Evangelist with exasperation, turned on her heel, and left. You get the point? You understand what's the problem with pantheism? What's the problem with, universal truth of oneness? Everything is one. There is no good and evil. There are no distinctions. If you're saying that everything is one, you're making a distinction. So to say that everything is one is one of the most essential errors, foundational contradictions a person can make. But that is the foundation of the movement. The worldview, for example.
The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Science is now teaching us that everything is energy, and that energy is interconnected and interdependent. In essence, that energy is one thing.
The truth of universal oneness, ancient wisdom has told us. The New Testament is ancient wisdom. The Old Testament is ancient wisdom. And if you want a worldview that is not flawed, if you want a worldview that will not fail you, a worldview that recognizes absolute truth, recognizes that everything is not one, that there is a creation, a created order, and a creator. And that the creator is separate from the creation. Certainly can interact with it, and has, through second person of the Trinity, through Jesus Christ, the God-man. What's wrong with that ancient wisdom? Are we throwing that ancient wisdom out the window? In fact, ancient wisdom doesn't teach us this. Myths, things that were always intended to be myths, that weren't looked at as anything other than myths. The story of Jesus Christ is history. It's reality. It's part of our world.
I'm not against technology, Doctor. I'm against the men who deify it at the expense of human truth.